Have you ever found yourself waking up in the morning and being totally sideways about knowing that you're going to do something that's going to make you really uncomfortable that day? Show of hands? Yeah, excellent. Me too. That's what I felt like this morning. And I'm excited to do that. When I first started talking with Kevin, in this spirit of transparency, yes, I have been blessed with working with so many leaders worldwide in so many countries, and I'll share some of those experiences. Although I don't know how I top today, because this is one of the most amazing companies I've ever been around, literally. And so, I won't let Kevin down. I'm going to share some stories, and I'm going to ask you some questions. That's pretty much my style. In doing some research about you all, plus what was happening in 1968, there were thousands of things happening in 1968, for those of us who remember. NASA launched the first Apollo 8 manned program to put an astronaut around the moon. Boeing created the 747 jumbo jet, so there's really cool things going on from a technology perspective. As is our world today, there were some not so happy things going on with the assassination of Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King, but life seems to go on. Then I started thinking, how many companies have gone out of business since 1968? You're smiling. Pick a number. And I know, I see your beef, so I'm going to call you Beef. I'm sorry, Ryan? Cool. I couldn't resist. It was a low-hanging curve. So what would be a wild guess as to how many businesses, companies have come and gone? You're probably pretty close. When you think about your own communities, how many small to medium-sized businesses have come and gone? I see head shaking. Can you pick a number? Thousands. And yet you all are still here. And the one thing that became abundantly clear to me today, and abundance seems to be the right word, is the people. You are incredible people. And the company, you're investing in technology because you have to. You're investing in hiring and training and all of those kinds of things. So when Kevin and I first started talking, he goes, so what are you going to talk about? And Kevin, along with, I think I talked to 10 or 12 of you, including Dick and Jay, asked them a couple of questions. And at the end of my time with them, whether it was 15 minutes or a half an hour, because some of us actually like to talk about the really cool things that we do. I'm originally from New York, so I might talk really quickly and I might answer your questions really quickly, but you all from the Midwest are really cool, wonderful people, and you like to really talk. And I love that. I find that endearing. And so I said to Kevin, I'm going to talk about corporate climate change. And I went out and I Googled corporate climate change. There's nothing out there. There's all sorts of things about climate change. Greenhouse gases, rising tides, glaciers melting, unfortunate fires and floods and all of those kinds of things. And I started thinking, actually, there's corporate climate change happening all the time. And what are the first couple of things that Dick and Jay talked about this morning? Well, changes are coming. Systems, people, change is part of our life every single day. So I started thinking about if greenhouse gases and rising tides and those kinds of things are impacting our own climate change. What are the things that are impacting corporate climate change? So after talking with a few of you folks here, the 5 elements of corporate climate change here at Crown Services turned out to be something like sales, recruiting, training, technology, and a little thing like leadership transition at the top. That's big stuff. And it's not just for 2018. This is the beginning. The transition is happening. So I started thinking about, so sales. Sales happens all the time. You're always, you're selling to your clients, but how often during the day are you always selling? When you walk into your local pharmacies, when you walk into your places of business where you have breakfast in the morning or lunch in the afternoon. I mean, you all, I can just tell because of your spirit, are always selling. And so, yeah, you're going to be challenged this year to raise your game when it comes to selling, but you're always selling. When it comes to recruiting, I think of recruiting in terms of you're always recruiting also, because you're not just recruiting new clients and prospects, but you're recruiting your replacements to take your job or other jobs within your branches, within your teams. So you're always recruiting. And are you taking that game to the next level? Meaning in your recruiting process, and I don't know what that looks like, but in your recruiting process, are you checking in to see if what we're doing is effective? So how do you know that it's effective? What kind of checks and balances are in place to know that, in fact, the recruiting that you're doing is really effective? Whether it's recruiting new clients, going after new clients, or recruiting people to come to work for you. The other thing is training. And training, I'm suspecting, based on what I heard today, is happening all the time. You all are you're going to learn Salesforce whether you like it or not within 30 days. Right? And you're going to use the newest, you're going to be masters at Salesforce, the next generation, within 2 months, because people are going to be asking you questions. But it's a really cool tool. So you're constantly training. When you bring someone on board to your team and your branches, I'm sure you have some kind of a training program. Bill's shaking his head. How do you know it works? So Jamie, how do you know, Miss Fish, how do you know that your training is effective? How do you know the training that you provide to people that you're recruiting into your branches is effective? Okay. Do you go through a process of every 30 days or 60 days or 90 days to see how that's going? Yeah. And they give you feedback, and do you make adjustments? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So training is the other element. The fourth element is technology. And it's obvious that your company is investing heavily into technology. And technology can be a wonderful, wonderful aspect of your life, unless you happen to be that family that goes out to dinner every night and sits across the table from each other at a restaurant, and you're on your phones or some kind of device rather than connecting and having a conversation. If your offices are lacking some kind of technical experience or people who really embrace technology, then find someone, find that person who wants to be part of your team who embraces technology, who loves technology, and really get comfortable with it. I mean, if I were you all, after what you've gone through today with Salesforce, I'm going to be curious enough to see what I can do with this thing. The mobile stuff gets a little crazy. You can just see going on a call, and all of a sudden you get in your car, and next thing you know, you're filling out a contract, maybe except for you. I know you'll be doing that. Filling out a contract on your phone and zipping it off. So that's the fourth element of corporate climate change as I see it at Crown Services. The fifth one is these two gentlemen in the back. Not those two, these two. So, this is a year of transition. I had the good fortune to talk to both Dick and Jay on the phone. I've had more time with them. I love listening to some of Dick's stories about, being around 45 years. There's a lot going on there. There's an awful lot of experience in that head back there, and Jay, I saw the numbers. What was it? $38 million net profit. That's pretty good. And his vision is $200 million in a couple of years. He didn't tell you which year, though. I'm just saying it's probably 2 or 3, just by the nature of how Jay is wired. How close was I? Yeah, 2 to 3. 2 to 3. Okay. And so, the culture within your organization is going to change. When I think about a culture within a business, culture is kind of the way that companies do business every single day. And the way you do business every single day changes. And I would encourage, because you'll probably come up against this, when Jay starts to take over, that you might see some things change. And that, there might be some anxiety around that. Excitement will follow, but there's likely to be some anxiety around that. The thing I always think about when it comes to change in cultures, it's like leverage the best and reinvent the rest. I mean, Dick did that when he took over after Chad passed away. I mean, you explained to me that there was some turmoil that you had to take over. And so that was the first phase of cultural change going back a number of years. And so, embracing change and being part of that change can be really exciting. And it doesn't have to be such an obstacle or so awkward. But if you think about the culture of your company changing, that's likely to continue or to carry on with the culture within your branches at the same time. So there'll be, and I love your story inside, Councilman, about the things that you're doing in your community. You're talking and connecting with people before you're even thinking about selling. And given some of the challenges you have with the competition and price points, you're going to have to start being really, really creative. And that's likely to change the way you do business. And that has an impact on the culture of your branch. So don't fight cultural change. Embrace it and think about it in the context of leverage the best aspect of my culture and reinvent the rest, the things that don't serve you or don't work anymore. So I want to tell you a story because you are amazing teams. I had the good fortune to work with a team in the UK a number of years ago. They were part of a very new startup, one of the top 1 or 2 building engineering companies in the world. And you want to talk about a diverse population. There were young folks from Poland, there were young folks from England, and there were young folks from Sweden coming together for the first time to start a new team. And I had the opportunity to go over there and be part of that. And the thing and I'm not being critical because I know Kevin loves to fly all over the place and find really cool places to have these events. But this team decided that we were going to live together in a house on the North Sea for 4.5 days. That was it's beyond interesting. And the bottom line was they had to find a way to assimilate, appreciate, and understand the tools and techniques and what they bring to the table. And it was a wonderful transformation for me to watch. All I had to do was facilitate. I mean, they're the experts, just like you all are. But it was a wonderful transformation of a team for me to witness and maybe think about employing some of those best practices. So I just share that as a team event. I do want to share some of the feedback that I received in talking with some of the wonderful people in the room here. So I asked 3 questions. They were probably along the lines of, can you tell me how you're going to leverage your brand in 2018? Well, the answers were pretty interesting because are there 40 offices now? 38 or 40 offices? So you actually have 38 or 40 brands because you have your own individual markets. I mean, yes, you have the Crown Services brand, but each of you is running an entrepreneurial business. And the response back to me in asking that question was, well, actually, we have our own independent markets and we kind of have our own brands. So we're just going to leverage those. Then I think I asked the question around, what will you do different in 2018 that you did in 2019? I had answers that range from nothing. What we do is really good and we're going to do really good again. Or we're going to leverage social media this year. We're going to get comfortable. Someone had said to me, I wasn't comfortable with it before, so we're going to get comfortable with social media and leverage that. Someone else said to me, I'm just going to be more friendly with people. Now, I don't know what they looked like or how they behaved in 2017, but when someone says to me, I'm just going to be more friendly with people because you're in the people business, that just made sense to me. I'm going to get involved in my community. We listened to Bill, who had the guts to run for councilman, I guess, the courage, although I could debate that. I ran in 2012 in my home city, and I did lose, but it was a great learning experience, and I promised my wife I'd never do it again. You lost twice? Good for you. So it's, it's really being involved in your community and being involved in your community in a way that's genuine and authentic. Not that you expect to get business back from it, but just be really genuinely involved in your community. Some of the other ones, show people that you care and understand. Then there was a statement, our strength is selling our value. And I noticed on your website it says, our commitment to excellence is centered in our values. And I started to think about commitment to excellence. Well, if that's your strongest asset, most valuable asset, I think it says actually, then the foundation for that has to be people. It has to be you all in this room. I mean, it comes down to the people. And I started thinking, okay, so this is passion, this is trust, this is respect, all of these kinds of characteristics support that commitment to excellence. There was another experience, this relates to teams. Carl had something to do with this. Probably 4 years ago, I received a call from Carl asking me if I had any interest in working with a highly decorated 23-year Navy SEAL. And I was like, well, Carl, that sounds pretty interesting. And I said, why me? He goes, actually, this is a compliment, but you guys are wired the same way. So now I'm thinking, okay, so he's a warrior, he's a SEAL, I'm a coach. And so I flew out to meet this Navy SEAL. Picked me up, no conversation, because they really don't associate with civilians. So there was no dialogue, and I mean that. I flew from Fort Lauderdale to San Diego in the morning, long 6-hour flight. There was no, are you hungry? Do we want to stop and get something to eat? He goes, here's our day, here's our itinerary. And the itinerary was me having the opportunity to go to a barbecue with his Navy SEAL team and their families. So as we're pulling up, he said to me, oh, by the way, I'm going to introduce you as a good friend of mine. And I said, I think that's great. He goes, that's not why I'm doing it. If I don't do that, I might as well leave you in the car. Because nobody will talk to you. So we walk in. Everybody does, you know how guys do the handshake hug? Hey, brother, to him. And he turns around and he goes, this is my good friend, John Arnold. To a person, every member of his SEAL team came up to me, shook my hands, and said, welcome, brother. And that's kind of weird. I guess this is their tradition. And then the wives or girlfriends or families came up, and every woman gave me a hug and said, welcome, John. And I said, for a total stranger, what a welcoming feeling to a team that you're really not part of. And I started thinking and wondering, how you all, what's the onboarding process for bringing someone on board to one of your offices? Is there something special that you do to make someone, you've obviously vetted them, you've probably taken them out to have something to eat, but what's the magic potion, or what's the magic experience or exercise that you do that brings people onto your teams and makes them feel welcome from day one? Can you share? How about another table? What can you share? How do you make me feel welcome as part of your team?
That's another day one. What did they learn today? What can I help you do? Make you better.
The thing about the what question, a couple of years back I wrote a couple of articles about the power of curious inquiry. And I used to say curious inquiry, but I always struggle with saying the word that quickly. Do you have a sense for what curious inquiry means or sounds like? When we're curious, and curiosity is such a powerful tool, it's hugely powerful, and it works at home too. So the positive aspects of curious inquiry are asking what and how questions. The negative aspects of curious inquiry are asking why questions. You know how you feel that tension in your chest when someone comes at you with a why question? Michelle, you're a little behind this week in your goals. Why can't you catch up? Why can't you keep up with us? Why can't you make those calls? When someone asks you that, and you just happen to be sitting in front of me, doesn't that make you feel kind of, yeah. And so, right. rather than knowing that you're already in that place and saying, okay, I want to have a really engaging conversation because I want to find out how I or our team can best help Michelle. So I know that she's a little behind in either cold calls or your goals. I said, so I noticed, Michelle, you're behind here. What can we do to help you? What kind of support do you need? How can I help you? How can the team help you? When you start asking people what and how questions, you learn a number of things. It causes them to think. When someone asks you a why question, the first why is you start to shut down. The second why, you really shut down. And the third why, you're calling them names under your breath. Because they're not engaging you. They're calling you out in a way that's personal, and you get defensive. And when you're asking the what and how questions, it tells you how that person thinks because they gave you a thoughtful response. Once you know how that person is thinking about that situation, whether it's positive or negative, then you can engage them in conversation. So I really encourage you to practice, if you're not already doing this, the process of curious inquiry. And by the way, it works at home. Trust me. So I have a question. How committed to building creative, innovative, and teams and not afraid to make a mistake? So how committed are you to building creative and innovative teams and not worried about making a mistake? Anybody? Right, it's not a blame, thank you, it's not a blame question, but, never use but, and. Do you have daily huddles or daily meetings? And how long are those typically? Are they 5 minutes or 10 or 15? 30? My new Katie would be different. I learned that this morning. What's the environment or the content of those meetings? Is it metrics? Is it inspirational? What does it tend to be? How do they tend to be? Informational? Goals for the day? Nothing but strictly for the day, right? Not going out to the week or the month?
Well, because tomorrow you're going to have another meeting, and it's going to be in your goal. What is it for that day? Well, for that day, it's going to be, what's your plan? How are you going to execute that plan? What is your goal for the day? This is what we need for these orders today. How are we going to do it?
And is it you speaking or is it everybody talking?
We all.
Everybody talks? Is that pretty much the same in every branch? It's a pretty collective process, pretty engaging process. How often as branch leaders, branch managers, do you find yourself inspiring your people on a regular basis? I see a smile. Is that a good smile or what kind of a smile is that?
I think that a lot of them are very motivational and
Mhm.
very inspirational with their teams, and I hear that from everybody.
People need that inspiration. What do you think? You have what day? Okay, so Donny Day?
Yeah, we have donuts.
Oh.
And we do it like on Fridays, and we call it Donny Day
Donny Day.
when we do our servant meetings.
I think a lot of people in here are really glad that you clarified that.
Okay.
I'm only saying that based on the looks of their faces.
I love it. The girls say, "Is it Donny Day?" Yep, it's Donny Day. So they all go and get donuts and eat donuts in the morning, go to American Orders. We share what they're going to do on the weekend, and we go through our daily
Any consideration like a fruit day, or is this going to be donor day? Okay,
Bougie day, snowy day.
I love it. Anybody else has themes like that in your offices with your teams? How often do you get together and share, other than these meetings, how often do you get together and share best practices, whether on a phone call or webinars, or how often do you get together to share best practices? You keep looking at me, you're going to have to answer one of these days. I can't read your name from here. Anthony, how often do you get together and share best practices with your peers? Okay. I just encourage you to do that if you're not doing that, because based on what I've heard today, the competition is after you. And your market is highly competitive, even though you're in the top 150 based on revenue. What are there, several thousand staffing companies? Some number like 3,000 worldwide? So I have a parting question. It's two parts. You don't have to answer it today, but I'd like you to think about it. What will you do either as a leader in your branch or with your team that will differentiate yourself from the competition? So what will you do in 2018 as a leader in your branch and or with your team that will differentiate yourself from the competition? I heard some really cool stories when we were with the sales team next door. You know, are you out when you're with your clients, are you out asking them about their training programs? How effective their training programs are? And they'll probably be wondering, why do you want to know about that? Well, you want to know if the people that you're placing are being trained the right way. Are you asking questions about, you know, what's the population of people in your company look like that's going to retire in 5 or 6 years? How come you want to ask that question? Because there's going to be a huge transfer of knowledge that's going to leave that company at some point in time, and they need to be replaced. And you have an opportunity to be a thought leader and thought partner with those companies, thinking alongside of them in how they're thinking about replacing, preparing for that huge exit of knowledge and experience, and then how are they going to replace that? So you become thought partners with them. So anyway, my question is, what will you do this year that will differentiate yourself from your competition, both as a leader and a team? And I thank you very much for your time and patience today. I really do. I'm happy to take any questions. I know how close I am to you getting out of here, so I'm trying to keep you on time too. But if you do have any questions, I'm happy to ask them. I've got some really cool experiences and happy to share them with you. Yes, sir.
You mentioned coaching.
Yes, sir.
Relate that to business, why it's so important to be not just involved with the coach.
It's a great question. Sometimes as a leader, it can be really lonely at the top. You know, if there's something that's not going well with my team, who am I going to talk to about that? And so coaches become sounding boards. Everything we do, every conversation we have is held in the highest level of confidentiality. Sometimes it's helpful to talk to someone who's not in your business. I get paid to ask thought-provoking questions. You know, and since I don't have any bad habits because I've spent no time in your business, I think about your business in a different way. I'm always thinking about what's missing in the conversation with someone that I'm having, and that could be useful in how you talk to your prospects. Somebody that you're trying to land as a client. You know, listen for what they're not saying. You know, read their body language. Listen for what they're not telling you. And then someone mentioned this in the room across the hall. Trust your instincts. I think that was you. Was that you, Jay, that said trust your instincts? Our instincts are going to be right 95% of the time. Almost 95% of the time, our instincts are going to work for us. The other 5%, as long as nobody gets killed, nobody loses their job, and the company doesn't lose a lot of money, it's not a big deal. But we should be trusting our instincts all the time. Any other questions? Did I answer your question, Jay? And I do practice that process of curious inquiry all the time. I'm always asking what and how questions. Because people want to talk. Thanks for your response. And thank you again for letting me talk to you this afternoon. I'm so impressed with this group of people, and I don't say that just because I'm here. As Carl said, I've worked with dozens of companies around the world. You have something special. I mean, you really do. I've never seen such a collective group of committed people who genuinely like each other, and you love what you do. It's really cool. So, applause to you. Thank you.